Thanks, Mike. So as mentioned, I'm going to talk about the lake trout assessment program, presenting results from 2023 and dating back to 1983. It's a two-vessel program with the research vessel Cahill from the USGS and the Seth Green from the DEC, and also help from Fish and Wildlife, and I'll also include a slide from the lake trout egg time and monitoring program led by Suni Brockport and Jacques Rinchard. So as was just talked about, this falls under the offshore deep pelagic and benthic zone of restoring self-sustaining native species, including lake trout. We can also, with this assessment program, index burbot and lake whitefish to some degree as well. And there's also a separate management strategy in the 2014 plan for lake trout. So some of the indicators in that program are listed here. I'm not sure why that one symbol turned up red there. That's not supposed to be red, but and also, like I said, from the egg thymine program, that's an additional indicator I'll present today as well. So throughout the history of the program, dating back to the 1970s, there's been a number of fish that have been stocked throughout the years. I should also note that the results I'll be in the data I'll be showing today is mainly from the U.S. side of things. So what I don't have here is the different stocking target levels have changed through time as well. So dating back to the 1980s, the stocking target was over 1 million. And then throughout the 1990s through early 2000s, that target was about 500,000 on the U.S. side. And then it increased a little bit after the 2014 plan to try to recover some of the stock that was when the stock decreased during 2005 to 2008. And then around 2017, there was a reduction in the stocking amount to about 400,000, and then another reduction in the stocking target level to 320,000 since 2020. So that's where we're at now. And this is just a mix of some of the strains. In the most recent years, we've received Huron Perry Sound strain, that's HPW here, Lake Champlain, LC, and Senecas. The survey was typically performed in September. We've shifted that this is now the second year that we've done this survey in August to make some room for experimental trawling in September for juvenile salmonids. Sites are spread throughout these 14 zones along the U.S. side. There used to be historic fixed sites on the Canadian North Shore at 10 different locations there. Those stopped in 1995, so the data and the trends that I'll be showing today are all from the U.S. side, dating back to 1983. Now, these points are probably a little bit small, but this is just the example from the 2023 survey. We fished a total of 52 gillnets in 14 locations and collected a total of 649 lake trout. So jumping into the abundance trends. So in last year, in 2022, we saw relatively high abundance, about 19. The top graph here is the total lake trout abundance. Is about almost 19 fish per lift. And we saw quite a we sort of noticed this apparently when we were out there, that it just seemed like we were catching less fish. So we saw quite a big change in that, decrease in the CPUE to about 12 fish per lift. This might be in part due to reflected from the stocking cuts that have been taking place, and this was across males and females, except for total amount of immatures was still relatively similar to previous years as well. Right from the 2014 management strategy, there's a management objective to increase the abundance of stocked lake trout to a level allowing for significant natural reproduction. And the measure that's outlined in that plan is a catch per unit effort of at least 2 large, in this case large, greater than 4 kilogram mature females per lift. And for the most part in the past decade or so, that's been above target in the survey. And with the reduced CPUE we had this year, this was the first time it's fallen below target in about 10 years. I think the value here is about 1.6 per lift. In contrast to that trend, lake trout condition here as the predicted weight of a 700 millimeter fish continues to remain relatively high. Over the course of the time series, it's kind of shown this increasing trend. So the condition is pretty high in these fish that we see. This is a map of some spatial differences that are apparent in the survey catches. This is just broken down by whether the immature and mature fish. You can notice that, well, one other thing to point out here, there is a data point there. That's the Charity Island area. There was only one fish caught in that set this year, so it's relatively low catch. It's pretty rare throughout the time series here that we have only one fish. Actually, that's across multiple nets up there. But the point I want to illustrate here is just that this over by Youngstown, by the Niagara River, the catches for the past few years, looking at the data, have been sort of dominated by immature fish. And that sort of decreases as you move east a little bit. You tend to get proportionally more mature fish in the catch. And that's also reflected in the size distribution. This is just the length frequency of fish in the survey, ranged from west going up to east. So you can see there's this slightly smaller median size there. And I apologize, these ones are probably a little hard to see, but just the point that fish are marked on the U.S. side with that are stocked with coated wire tags. So we can also look at spatial differences in strain composition. And in this past couple of years, in this survey too, about half the fish that we've been recovering are from the Klondike strain. That's this purple SKW that are from the Lake Superior Klondike Reef broodstock. And part of that trend that might explain the differences in maturity from west to east is also that about 3/4 of the catch at Youngstown were Klondikes. One of the indicators in the 2014 strategy is also having a diverse age groups diverse groups of different ages across sizes and stuff too, and strains. So this is the age composition of fish with coated wire tags in the survey. You can see these really big blue bars here at ages 4 and 6 are Klondikes. The original first year class of Klondike stocked into Lake Ontario was this 2008 year class that now showed up as age 15s. So we're still seeing them in catches this year in the 2023 survey. And they had a remarkably pretty good survival between adults from ages 7 through 11, so 82% survival. Keep that number in mind as we transition into this graph, which is in the management plan, the goal is to have strain survival of greater than 60%. So that's the dashed line here is the target. And for the most part, strain survival has been above that target, especially for Senecas in the blue, dating back throughout the history of the program. But we noticed in the most recent year classes that we have now that are now maturing to adults, so the 2013 and 2014 year classes, we're starting to see some strain survival that's below that threshold or that target level of 60%. Senecas being still the exception, that we're still above 60%. But if you look at the Klondike values, the purple dots here, that's below 60%, whereas that original 2008 year class that was stocked was, like I said, 82% before. These are results from the 2023 egg thiamine monitoring program from Jacques Rinchard. He wanted me to just kind of mention this. And for Lake Ontario, circled in red here, we had 3 different port locations that were contributed to this program this year, and quite a range. You see the dashed line here is the 4 nanomole per gram recommended threshold to produce viable, successful offspring. And you can see there's a mix of points that sort of fall above and below that threshold for Lake Ontario sites. Jumping back into mature lake trout, the ultimate goal of the program is, of course, to produce a self-sustaining population that it requires wild fish out there. And the lower graph here is the percent that don't have any tags or clips. So we use that as an indicator of the percent wild. And for the most part, this is the percentage, so it ranges from about 0 to 6% in the graph here. And it's been about 2 to 5% throughout the history of the program. And in the past, in 2023, we captured a total of 5 mature lake trout that were indicative of being wild. So overall, it's only about 1%. So still relatively low. And to put that number in perspective, this is a graph of the percent wild adults in lake trout across lakes that we kind of sourced from different reports out there. Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, well down there at the bottom of the graph in blue and purple. So pretty similar compared to the upper Great Lakes where there's a greater proportion of wild adults and catches. Sea lamprey wounding rates decreased from pretty high levels in 2022 to back down being around target rate, which is the dash line up here. The wounding rate was about 2.09 A1 wounds per 100 fish. And the rise observed last year was in part due to the COVID pause that impacted lampricide treatment. And with the declines in CPUE that we observed throughout the survey this year, there's also a lower number of potential hosts out there for lake trout of that size range. Like I said, you can also index a few other species to some extent from this program, one of them being burbot. And this is the time series for burbot. It looks, in my opinion, pretty similar to the trend in the Lake Erie Cold Water Task Report group, where you see this sort of rise. And then it's been at a low level ever since for about 2 decades. We didn't catch any burbot this year, didn't catch any last year. This is now the 3rd consecutive year with no burbot. Though they've been relatively rare, the peak up here is about 17 burbot that were caught in 1998. So to summarize and provide a sort of indicator type card that you guys just showed on some of the other stuff, this is sort of my take on it. In regards to increasing abundance of lake trout, the 2023 result was lower, so I gave that as sort of a decreased status compared to last year, but overall yellow because it's still a decent number of fish out there, I think. But the increasing abundance of wild lake trout is a red X because we only, the indicator there was 1% wild for mature fish, so still much lower than I think we'd like to see. The 2014 strategy indicator, the CPUE of greater than 2 mature females, greater than 4 kilograms, fell below target. Like I mentioned earlier, this is about the first time in 10 years we've seen that. I didn't present this other piece of data, but angler catch harvest, there's another indicator objective there for that to be less than 10,000 fish, and the report this year is about 8,100 fish, so we're below target, so green check mark. Lake trout condition and the age distributions of fish out there both got green check marks. We got fish that range from age 2 to 33 in the survey, and condition has been consistently high for the past 10 years or so. Adult survival and strain performance, for the most part, throughout the time series has been pretty good, greater than 60%. But some of those recent data points dipped below that target level. So I scored that as a mixed indicator. And thiamine concentration as well. Some of those observations were above and below the 4 nanomole per gram threshold, so mixed for that one as well. Sea lamprey wounding earned a green score this year compared to last year. And with that, I'll just leave one more piece of information. I mentioned there were some Canadian sites that were fixed locations along the North Shore here. We've had some working group discussions to talk about possibly sampling those with the help of OMNRF this year to move this from a U.S.-only survey to a lake-wide survey and revive some of that historic data as well. So that's all I got. Thanks. And a couple more pictures from survey stuff.